Wagwan everybody. In GTA Vice City, Tommy Vercetti is being thrown under the bus from the very start. A drug deal he was meant to conduct has been unceremoniously disrupted by the mysterious hitman. This put the main character in trouble with his boss from the very beginning. In today's video, I'll tell you what would have happened if the discussed deal had been conducted successfully. Also, you'll find out what would have to happen differently for the deal to be successful, how the failed transaction impacted the story of Vice City, what it meant for Tommy, why and by who the deal was disrupted in the first place, and how it would change the roles of other characters in the story of GTA Vice City if the deal was to be successful. First, as always in the episodes of this type, I'll record the background of this whole deal. However, if you think you know the background well and would like to skip to the main part of the video, check out the chapters on the video's timeline. In 1986, the Forelli Mafia wanted to expand their operation to Vice City, as the drug demand there was going through the roof and it was the best geographically placed city in America for importing the drugs from Latin America, where cocaine was mostly produced. Therefore, the Don of the Mafia, Sonny Forelli, decided to send Tommy Vercetti there, a guy who just got out of jail after a 15-year sentence, which he got as a result of the ambush in 1971, organized by Sonny Forelli himself, who feared that Tommy wanted to take over his spot as the Mafia's Don. Keeping such a guy as far as possible from Liberty City, so where the Forelli Mafia mainly operated, was probably the best option for both parties. Tommy's task was to simply build foundations for the future Mafia cocaine operation in Vice City. Sonny wanted to make it easier for Tommy by giving him a head start of 20 kilograms of cocaine, which he was meant to buy off the Vance brothers upon his arrival at the south coast of America. The deal was organized with the help of Colonel Cortez, whose right-hand man, Gonzalez, leaked the information about the deal to Ricardo Diaz, who at the time was at the throne of the drug business in Vice. Ricardo obviously knew that the Forelli Mafia would constitute competition to his operation, so in order to stop the Mafia from taking their piece of cake in Vice, he hired hitmen to stop the deal from happening, which forced Tommy Vercetti to build his new empire from scratch. So first, what would have to happen for the deal to be successful? There are two scenarios I see here. The first one is that Diaz never finds out about the transaction. In that case, Gonzalez would have to stay loyal to Cortez, or Cortez would have to discover his betrayal early and deal with him. Additionally, there was another issue, Lance. As we know from Vice City's stories, Lance was hopelessly irresponsible. We remember how Diaz got him drunk and made him agree to a loan that was not a particularly great deal for the Vance brothers. For me, Lance was almost certain to at some point squeal to Diaz about the deal. Moreover, there is a quite likely theory that Lance wanted to betray Vic because he never treated him seriously and go work for Diaz, similarly to what he done later to Diaz himself and Tommy. That being said, this theory also assumes Lance to be involved in the deal disruption and intentionally sending his brother for death. So for Diaz to not find out about the Viceport deal, Lance somehow would have to keep his mouth shut. He would have to, for once in his life, be reasonable and stay on his brother's side and probably stop hanging out with Diaz completely. The second, more likely scenario is that the Mafia and Vic would be more cautious about the deal. What I mean is that they would bring along some backup and they all defo should be carrying. Actually, I always found it weird that neither the Vance brothers nor the Forelli delegation, shall we say, have not brought any additional protection to the deal. It's weird cause there was a lot at stake, and the chances that someone would be interested in teething 20 kilos of snow and the money to pay for it were pretty high. So basically, this scenario assumes that yes, Diaz finds out about the deal and sends the hitman, but both parties of the exchange are able to deal with them and still perform the transaction. Had the transaction been conducted successfully, Tommy would have a lot easier job. He'd be able to get the operation running at once. This would help him to get money right away, which would then see him in a lot more advantageous position in the war with the Diaz's gang than what it was in the original story, where he had to first complete jobs for Cortez in order to get to Diaz at all, and constantly being distracted by the pressure from the Mafia. Tommy could still follow this path even if the deal was successful. In that case, you could reason it that Tommy wanted to learn how to play the drugs game from Diaz by working for him and then catching him by surprise like in the mission Rob Out. rather than conducting a full-blown war with him. If he followed a full-blown war path, he would probably never have to work for Cortez or Avery Carrington. Cortez weren't really that important in Tommy's success, apart from the fact that he led him to Ricardo Diaz, who Tommy had to get rid of in order to take control of the city. Avery's role in the original story was that he apparently stalled the Mafia's arrival at Vice City, as he says in the riot mission.
Son, you help me, and any greaseballs giving you a hard time, I'll see to it they take a long dirt nap.
And as well, later he gave advice to Tommy that he should look for legal fronts to his drug operation so he can launder the money coming from it. While the first point would be completely unnecessary as the Mafia wouldn't be angry with Tommy as everything went smooth, the second thing still remains valid. However, in my opinion, Tommy well knew that the legal front in this kind of business would be a must, and he didn't need anyone to tell him that. Therefore, Avery Carrington would also be a lot less significant in Tommy's life. Also, Tommy's aim would not change. In the original story, his objective was to get the reputation necessary to work for Diaz, find out about his operation and hit him when he least expects it. Then establish his empire's position by investing in legal fronts and extending his business by racketeering. Even though the game at the beginning suggests that we are looking for the person responsible for disrupting the deal, I don't personally think that Tommy wanted to do that at all. So the fact that the transaction would be successful wouldn't change a lot, apart from getting Tommy a head start and potentially changing the way he takes over Diaz's business. By the way, just quickly, next week I'm planning to release a video where I would explain the whole Sicilians plan and what was going on with the three Mafia families in GE Liberty City stories. If you'd like to see that, please let me know by liking this video. However, if there are other topics that you would be interested in, write in a comment what those topics would be. Now, back to it. Another quite unobvious aspect of this would be what would happen to the Vance brothers. And here again, we can split it into two scenarios. The first one, in which we would assume the aforementioned theory about Lance betraying Vic is correct, or the second one, in which Lance wanted to continue working with his brother and did not want to get him killed. Whichever path we choose to go with, it would be quite a challenge to speculate anything about it. That's because we don't know a lot about the relationship between Lance and Victor in 1986. See, what we see at the beginning of Vice City and what we see at the end of Vice City's stories are almost two opposites. At the end of Vice City's stories, Vic wants to quit selling drugs and does not want to sell the 20 keys Lance obtained. However, in 1986, he ends up actually selling the drugs, and he therefore does not look like someone who does it reluctantly. That obviously could be because Rockstar created the idea of Victor's story of 1984 after Vice City was designed, so there could be a few inconsistencies, like Vic's voice and appearance being completely different in Vice City and Vice City's stories. Nevertheless, it seems like a lot has changed during the 2-year period between the games, and we do not know what has changed. Maybe Vic and Lance, had the deal gone successful, would leave town, or maybe they would also want to regain their position in Vice, which actually would make things very interesting. We would get to see a war for control of the city between Tommy and the Mafia, the Vance crime family, and Diaz's gang, who would try to maintain his position. However, we don't know the mindset of Vic in 1986, so it's difficult to determine which scenario would be more likely. So now, summary time. The deal in Viceport has been disrupted by Diaz, who, having found out about it from Gonzalez or Lance, or both, wanted to stop the Forelli Mafia from entering the drug market in the city as he didn't want any competition. For the deal to go wrong, either both Lance and Gonzalez would have to keep their mouths shut about the deal so Diaz never finds out about it, or the Forelli delegation and Vic would have to be able to deal with the assassin's attack and still perform the transaction. Had the transaction gone successfully, Tommy would start his drug operation right away and would probably conduct a full-blown war with Diaz's gang, instead of having to gradually gain reputation by working for Cortez or Carrington in order to get to Diaz, infiltrate his organization and destroy it from within. The rest of his plan would remain unchanged, as he still would want to cut ties with the Mafia. This approach would significantly decrease the importance of some characters' roles in the game, such as Cortez or Carrington, who Tommy would not need to get to the top anymore. Let me know if I forgot to mention anything and whether you agree with what was said. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more content about GEA. As always, thank you for watching. Respect.